All right, this is the Schaeffer Cox I Need Your Help letter. It's on the freeschaeffercox.com website. You can make donations there. I found out that there is a donation button down at the bottom right. Schaeffer Cox has also said he needs money on his commissary account. And I made a video before about how to send a personal check, which takes 30 days to clear, or you could send a money order, which will clear immediately. And that's directly to his commissary. So you have to look up the word commissary in my previous videos. But in any event, I'm told this letter is about to be updated. Maybe, I don't know, we don't know how long. But I wanted to read it, and then when the updated letter comes out, I'll read you the updated letter. Francis Schaeffer Cox, number 16179-006, U.S. Penitentiary, Marion, Illinois. Or USP Marion, P.O. Box 1000, Marion, Illinois, 62959, December 17th, 2014. Dear friend of the Second Amendment, my name is Francis Schaeffer Cox, and I'm a 30-year-old political prisoner of the Obama administration. My only crime was believing in the Second Amendment and that the government should obey our Constitution. That's all it took for Obama's feds to take away my freedom, widow my wife, and orphan my children. I'm taking a huge risk sending this letter to you. If it becomes known, I may be shackled and sent to the hole for years. But it's a risk I'm willing to take to see my wife and kids again. Here they are in two pictures I sent you. One is of my sweetheart Marty and me holding our newborn son Seth during happier times. The other is of Seth all grown up with his little sister, my angel Bree. The last time I held them in my arms was over 3 years ago, and without your immediate help, I won't hold them for another 22 years. That's because I'm serving 26-year sentence in a prison named Little Guantanamo for crimes I didn't commit. It's my hope and prayer that after reading this and seeing the hell my family and I have been through, you will help me with this my last chance to prove my innocence and return home to my family. This is my cry for help, not just for me and my family, but for Americans like you who may be Obama's next targets. With that said, here's my story. I never thought in a million years I'd be in prison. After all, I was raised in a conservative Christian home in Alaska. It's where my father taught me how to hunt, my godparents taught me to fish, and where I climbed to the summit of Mount McKinley. It's also where I met my faithful and loving wife Marty. Even in my cold 6x9 jail cell, I can still smell the lavender perfume she wore on our first date 12 years ago. With her blessing, I decided to run for the Alaska State House of Representatives in 2008. It was a tight three-way race that I narrowly lost with 38% of the vote, but it did position me for a strong run in the next election. But that was 2 years away, and like you, I'm not one to sit back and watch as my country falls apart. So I started campaigning early and hosting town hall meetings in Alaska and across America. My platform was simple. The government needs to follow the Constitution and stop treading on our rights, especially our natural right to keep and bear arms. And I guess my message struck a nerve, not just with the tens of thousands of patriots like you that poured into town halls across America, but also with Holder, Obama, and their gun-grabbing friends. These tyrants hate the Second Amendment and anyone who supports it. So when my pro-Second Amendment speeches gained momentum across America, the Obama administration decided they had to find or make a way to silence me. That's when my family's nightmare began. Looking back as I sit in my prison cell and pour through Homeland Security documents the government used in my case, I can see that the government looked high and low for some reason to silence or arrest me. But they found none. Like you, I'm an honest man who fears God and loves his country. I paid my taxes, ran my business ethically, and followed the law. But Obama wasn't looking for criminals. He was targeting conservative patriots who disagree with his criminal acts. So he sent Attorney General Eric Holder and other corrupt Department of Justice officials to target Alaska conservatives just like me. Maybe you remember hearing about this several years ago. It was all over the news. The Obama administration codenamed it Operation Polar Pin. Go ahead and look it up. You'll be shocked at what they got away with using your tax dollars. Their plan was simple. Use undercover FBI informants to create fake charges and sabotage political campaigns of anyone on Obama's enemies list. They took down our Republican Senator Ted Stevens, who was also an NRA executive board member, 3 Alaskan state house reps, and dozens of local patriots. And since I was the main organizer of the Second Amendment lobby in Alaska and represented thousands of conservative voters, I had to go and they didn't care how. So it didn't take long for Holder's criminals and undercover agents to target and harass me and my family. They started showing up one by one, trying to talk me into committing a crime. Remember, I didn't know they were undercover federal agents wearing wires at the time. Those same audio recordings would later prove my innocence, but I'll get to that soon. The first time one of the undercover agents come up to me and said, "You need to use your influence to organize a violent attack on the government. That's the only way you can make a difference," I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I told them that they were nuts and to stay away from me, but they didn't like hearing that. So they got even more pushy and intimidating. These thugs tried anything and everything to get me to say that I was going to attack the government. But as soon as they realized I would never say anything like that, they kicked it up a notch by going after the most important thing to me in the world, my kids. That's when the feds filed a bogus child neglect complaint with the Child of Office Services and convinced a local judge to use a writ of assistance to seize our 1.5-year-old baby Seth with a SWAT team. Even writing about this tears me apart, and I've never been more heartbroken and furious at the same time. As soon as Marty and I found out, we called our friend and lawyer, Robert John. He advised us that we should find a safe place to stay until we got to the bottom of it. But before we could get far, one of the same undercover agents from before confronted us and said, "See, I told you so. Now the feds are attacking your children. That's a line in the sand, and we can't let them cross. If they do anything, I'm going to attack them to defend you. And if you refuse to stand up and help, I'll kill you for being a coward." When Marty and I heard that, our hearts sank. Not only was the government coming after our son Seth, but now our lives were being threatened for refusing to commit a crime. And remember, I still had no idea these guys were undercover FBI agents. What would you do at that point? I could only think of doing one thing: getting my family as far away from these people as thugs as possible. So we packed up our bags and got ready to leave. But before we could leave, another FBI undercover informant caught up with us one last time and threatened me not to leave. I told him that I had to do what was best for my family, and that's that. I had no idea the feds were listening in at the time and realized they weren't going to get me to commit a crime, and they were about to lose me forever. That's when they struck. Obama's feds had set an ambush. Out of nowhere, masked agents swarmed in, slammed me to the ground, and handcuffed me and whisked me away in a black SUV. Before I knew it, I was sitting in a jail cell charged by the feds in state court with conspiracy against the government. Read that again. Conspiracy against the government. Can you believe that? I still can't. And neither could my attorney, Robert John, when I called him from jail pleading with him to get these ridiculous charges dropped. And thank God that's exactly what he did. Here's how. Remember the audio recordings I told you about earlier? The ones that prove my innocence? Well, Robert John got them admitted in pretrial motions, and as soon as the state judge heard them, he knew the case was nothing but lies and threw the whole thing out. So after spending nearly a year in jail, going bankrupt, and missing my daughter Bree's first words, it looked like my family and I would be together soon, or so we thought. That's when Obama and Holder sent their federal prosecutor named Joseph Bottini, the same man who took down Senator Ted Stevens, after me. And you know the worst part? He charged me in federal court with the exact same charges. But it gets worse. Not only was I facing charges I had already been found innocent of in state court, now the prosecutor moved the trial hundreds of miles away, so Marty and I couldn't afford to fly in my witnesses. If that wasn't bad enough, the death blow came when the same prosecutor filed a motion barring us from playing the government's own recordings. The same recordings I told you about earlier that proved my innocence. The whole thing was a sham. Everybody knew I hadn't broken any laws. The prosecution even admitted I refused to commit a crime, but they argued that didn't matter. Why? Because the government prosecutor said that my belief in the Second Amendment was dangerous and disloyal to the federal government. They even argued that I may possibly someday harm someone with my legal collection of firearms and that I was plotting against the government. Here's how it went in the courtroom. Prosecutor: are there any circumstances where you would resist the government? Yes, but only in the sense that my first loyalty is to the Constitution and the rule of law. Prosecutor: you see, he's plotting against the government. I rest my case. Judge: guilty. And that's all it took to widow my wife, orphan Seth and Bree, and condemn me to this tiny cell for 26 years. So I have to ask you, is this the America you want to live in? On one where the federal government can say you are disloyal if you support the Second Amendment? One where your kids and grandkids can be called terrorists and sent to prison for legally owning a weapon and supporting that right? That's not the America I grew up in, and it's not the America I want Bree and Seth to grow up in. And as a fellow Second Amendment supporter, I'm sure you feel the same. That's why I'm writing to you today. You see, I have one last chance to appeal my conviction to the 3-judge panel on the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals based on the fact that the prosecution withheld evidence. The same recorded evidence I told you about earlier that proves my innocence. Not only would this allow me to possibly reverse my 26-year jail sentence and return home to my family, it would also overturn a very dangerous precedent Obama set when he locked me up and threw away the key. My case is the first one like it. If you and I stand by and do nothing, not only will I continue to rot in this tiny cell, Obama will also have all the legal power he needs to lock patriots like you and me away for supporting the Second Amendment. And you better believe Hillary would love to inherit that power in 2016. The only way we can stop this is by appealing this landmark case right now. So I have to ask you, one patriot to another, will you help me in this? My last chance to overturn this wrongful conviction to return home to Marty, Seth, and Bree. I pray your answer is yes, because I only have until Thursday, February 12th. That's my deadline for filing this appeal. But in order to do that, I need a great attorney, and as you know, great attorneys don't come cheap. Fortunately, I have Robert John, the same lawyer and friend who got the state of Alaska to drop all charges against me, and the same man I'm counting on to get me home to Marty, Bree, and Seth. But in order to do that, I desperately need to raise $56,124 by Thursday, February the 12th. That's the cost of filing my last chance appeal. That's why I'm turning to a few select patriots like you today. With your immediate help, without your immediate help, I'll miss my last chance appeal. Obama will set his dangerous precedent, and I'll spend the next 22 years locked up as a political prisoner away from my family. As I told you earlier, my family has lost everything. We don't have a cent left to our name. That's why I'm praying to God that you find it within your heart to support my appeal with a gift of $26, $1 for every year I was unjustly sentenced to serve in prison. I've even included a reply sheet with my legal team you can use to send your I've even included a reply sheet from my legal team you can use to send back your urgent donation. If you could send a larger gift of $38, $56, $74, $99, $150, or $1,776, or even more, it would mean so much to me and my family. My legal team would put it to use right away to get me out of this secret prison. But if you can only afford the gift of $26, I won't ask a penny more. I'm just so thankful for your help. No matter what amount you can give, will you send it right now, please? Seth doesn't understand why the men in masks took Daddy away. Bree doesn't understand why Daddy isn't there to read her bedtime stories and kiss her goodnight. And my beautiful wife Marty doesn't deserve to be a widow at 27. I have the evidence, I have a lawyer, and I have the truth on my side. I just need you and your urgent gift of at least $26 to help me prove it to the judges on the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. But no matter what you do, please pray for Seth and Bree who are missing their daddy. Pray for my wife who is struggling to make ends meet, and pray for our country. My life is in your hands. Francis Schaeffer Cox. P.S. The Obama administration locked me up for 26 years in a political prison nicknamed Little Guantanamo, widowed my wife, Marty, and orphaned my 2 kids, Seth and Bree, because I publicly supported your and my right to keep and bear arms. Please, I have one last shot at my innocence in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. Overturn this dangerous precedent and return home to my family. Will you send your urgent donation of $26, one for every year I was unjustly convicted, to help me raise $56,124 to make this happen? P.P.S. I need to hear from you by Thursday, February 12th. That's the deadline for filing my appeal. God bless. Okay, I wanted to read this to you guys because it covers a pretty good summary of the situation, and this is exactly what Obama's done with his Department of Justice, and even the IRS. He was targeting conservatives. The Department of Justice is one of the wicked organizations on the planet Earth. We have the Federal Reserve, we have the United Nations, we have the United States Department of Justice, we have the FBI. Wicked. They are ran, and the leadership of those organizations are wicked as hell.